How to know if you are being emotionally manipulated. In this video, I want to talk about gaslighting, what it is, and how it plays a huge part in when to know whether you're being gaslighted or not. I want to talk about the stages of being on the receiving end of someone that's gaslighting you and how you can accept this reality so that you can change it. There are a few indications that you might be a victim of gaslighting. If you are constantly second-guessing yourself, if you're feeling confused about what you did or what happened or didn't happen, or when you're not telling other people in your life about a conflict in your relationship for fear of being judged, where you're constantly apologizing, you're saying sorry for no reason, and despite having many positive things in your life, you're feeling unhappy or depressed, or you've just lost your joy. And this is what is so insidious about gaslighting, is that it is an emotionally abusive tactic that makes the victim question their own sanity and perception of reality. I want to talk about this because I nearly died from being under the spell of somebody that was gaslighting me over 7 years of my relationship with them. And if you've ever watched the movie Gaslighting, it actually came through a man who idealizes this woman in the beginning, and then it goes through these 3 stages of a very narcissistic, abusive relationship where he devalues her, and this includes plenty of gaslighting, but he also uses a triangulation during the stage that he triangulated her with their maid by putting her down in front of her maid and then praising and complimenting the maid in front of his own wife. Then he takes the maid to the theater instead of her on the sneak, and he completely crushes her down in isolation and discards her away to her room until finally that geezer comes and tells her the truth. So I don't want to spoil the whole story for you, but gaslighting can start off very subtle, and at first you may not notice, so you have to pay attention to your gut instinct. I wish I'd known about this when I was so aware that something was off, because I used to be this vibrant, independent, happy, go-lucky woman that was not just surviving but thriving. I built multiple businesses. I had a wonderful life for myself, and when I shouldn't have got involved, but did. From the very first moment that I met this man, all the red flags were there. And yet I carried on with the psychological abuse with this feeling like I was always walking on eggshells, and that I didn't know where I stood. I was uneasy and anxious, and I was always second-guessing myself. And of course, the final part of that in my relationship was he completely isolated me from all the people that actually saw me in my highest, greatest good. So, also sometimes what people do when they're gaslighting you is in that devalue stage of the relationship is that they can go from idealization of you to devalue within the space of a very short time. So you're like on this yo-yo high and low, and it can really be confusing because one minute they're being really, really nice and loving, and in the next moment you're getting this silent treatment, and it becomes very irrational, and it's an awful situation to be in. Trust me, I know this one really, really well. And even though I felt so trapped and I wanted to run for the hills, I felt like I couldn't. My ex-husband used to say to me, there's only one way you're leaving this relationship, and that's in a box. And of course, that made me even more afraid because he devalued my ability to create. And I forgot. And I did really, really well without him because there was this constant, subtle degradation of my personality and my belief in myself. So the term gaslighting, it's been used a lot recently in reference to strategic tactics that were used during the most recent United States presidential campaign. And this is when a candidate claims something that they had or hadn't happened, and when they were confronted with this contradictory evidence, they refused to acknowledge otherwise. So the term, as I said, was originally popularized from a 1938 film called Gaslighting, starring Ingrid Bergman, who is slowly being driven to doubt her own reality because her husband's intentionality lied and lied and lied to gain control over her. So repeatedly and with so much confidence that she began to doubt her insanity. And I really know in my own relationship and experience of being gaslighted, I felt like I was literally going crazy and committed myself into an insane asylum after I had had a brush with death, because he said, here's a gun, go shoot yourself. You're not worthy. You're useless. You're fat. There was just so much of that. And by then he got me in a place where he was in total control. And it's a little bit like Stockholm syndrome, because it can develop into that, where the victim is so uncertain of herself that she perceives that she can perceive reality correctly, and becomes more and more dependent on the gaslighter than ever. And I kind of had a bit of that going on. But unfortunately, gaslighting is not reserved for pilot movies, plot lines, or the political campaign trail. It is a form of psychological abuse that happens every day in real relationships. Sometimes the gaslighter is doing it intentionally to gain control and power over the victim. And sometimes they have the belief that their reality can and should overwrite their partner's. So either way, if you are in a relationship that has you questioning your own sanity, your own memory or perception or recall of events, and even your sanity, then you're in the right place, because I want you to know that none of this is your fault. And I want to give you some tools so that you can know, if you are being gaslighted, what you can do to change that. So as a recap, as I said, a lot of the time they'll use withholding. And these people, they can't be there for you. So they will withhold by demeaning. Oh, here we go again. Oh, you're doing that thing. You're too sensitive. And they refuse to listen. So they make you feel wrong all the time, and it's always bringing up things in the past. So when they're dismissive, then they don't have to take any responsibility. So they're always blaming you for everything that goes wrong in your relationship. The other thing that they do is that they're constantly flip what you say or do by questioning you in a way to make you doubt that you said something, and then they do it over and over again until you feel you are wrong. And that, oh, you're making it up, or are you sure you did that? Or, I don't know if that's what you said you did, because I heard you say this. So they're constantly making you go into a place where you doubt yourself and what you said or what your reality is. The third thing that they often do is they divert the situation. And this is where they really block you, what you think. They can't receive you, and they make you feel very unimportant, like your desires, your asks don't matter, that you're crazy or you're too sensitive or you're making things up or you're imagining it. So they're always going to find a way to block you. And the main goal is to make you feel and think that you are unimportant, and that you should be grateful that they're in your life, because you are so useless, or as my partner used to say, oh, you're fat, you're stupid. And when they say it long enough, you start to believe it. So it's total abuse 101, and it's devoid of any empathy or compassion or open communication. It's very one-sided, and they find your emotional wounds. This is how they do it. They're very sneaky in pushing your buttons to see what triggers you, to see where you're emotionally weak, or that your wounds are very, very raw, so that they can use that, they can turn it on you to hurt you and make you angry, so that they provoke an argument where they find, that's your weak point, and then they use that against you to control you. So one of the key things to do if you're in a position with a narcissist or someone that's gaslighting you or verbally or mentally abusing you is don't get angry. They want you to be emotionally charged, and then they deflect it so that they take, that's where you want to say, you know what, I'm taking a time out, I'm going to step away, or you've got to stay really strong and firm in what you stand for, what you believe. And when you do that, when you're strong, when you have a strong sense of self, by knowing what you know and how you think and feel, and that you know that it's important, they'll find another way to push your buttons. So oftentimes when you're trying to get out of an emotionally abusive relationship where you're being gaslighted, or you're in a codependent relationship with a narcissist, this is what they're constantly going to do, to try and wear you down until you actually start believing that you're not important. And why it's so important to find people to support you that do see your strengths and can make sense of some of the insanity. So the best thing that you can do, as I said, is work on yourself and master your emotions so that you can really trust that you are lovable, that you are worthy, and that you know who you are by standing up for yourself in healthy ways. This is where strong, healthy boundaries are so vital, and where they want to wear you down so that you actually start to not know where you begin and the other person starts. The boundaries start to get very blurred so that they can have more control over you. So when you come out of an emotionally abusive relationship, you're going to feel depleted. You're not going to know who you can trust, and you're going to be angry. And I always say that you need to heal in order to feel. You have to feel everything, and you can't often see it when you're in it. So this is why support is so vital. When I was at one stage, had snapped my Achilles tendon, and I was stuck in the house. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go anywhere. And I was really feeling afraid that I would ever walk again, let alone do anything else. He really got to control me, and thank God for my beautiful friends who knew something was up. I wasn't answering my calls because he'd taken my phone away. I was trapped in the house, and she loved me enough to come to the house, borrowed a ladder from next door neighbors because he'd locked me in the house, climbed in a window, and literally saved me from myself, because I was a dithering, blubbering mess, a big hot mess. So just know that it's not your fault, and that you can recover from gaslighting and emotional abuse. So again, recap on the signs that you've been gaslighted. Take an inventory of who you're surrounding yourself with. Are they toxic or are they healthy people? If you're feeling confused or crazy, like you're losing your mind, you are being emotionally abused. And if you used to be happy and healthy and now you're constantly sorry and depressed and anxious all the time, you're in an unhealthy relationship. And you need to get support to actually gain your strength again in order to start to find a solution to your problems and get away from that without being driven by this fear that they would have really impregnated in to keep you in that codependent relationship. If you're doubting yourself, if you no longer trust how you feel or think because your intuition is saying do something and the person that you love is saying another, so you're constantly in that cycle of doubt, stop giving away your power and trust what you know and believe. Take a look in the mirror and do the deep self-love work. And again, get support, because one of the things that they use is to isolate you from any kind of support that's going to get you to see that this is not you, that you're not going crazy. If you're constantly making excuses for your partner's behavior when you're out in public, or you're really treading on eggshells all the time, that's a sign that you're being gaslighted, because their behavior is inappropriate. It's out of bounds. Way that they'll do this is that they will make you feel embarrassed in front of your friends, and then your friends won't want to come around anymore. This happened to me, because they don't like the way that your partner's talking to you or abusing you, and you are going into making excuses because after your friends leave, you're the one that has to be in the company of that person. So there's a lot of hypervigilance and fear that drives the behavior where you make excuses for your partner. So again, get support. Really look at what's going on underneath all of this. If you're not confident or relaxed, if you're feeling hopeless, or you feel like, oh my God, I can't, it doesn't matter what I do, I can never get anything right. Again, when I was with my ex-husband, I constantly felt when things got really, really bad, that he was better than me and smarter than me and healthier than me, and I couldn't trust myself. And ultimately it was the destruction of my business, of my marriage, of my health, of everything that I built over the last 15 years without him. It came to a head because he made some really bad judgment calls that put our business into jeopardy. So, you know, again, it's never the case, okay? And I felt that there was something very, very wrong with me when it actually had nothing to do with me. This was someone that had their own agenda and was in their own cycle of abuse. And remember that too, that people that are hurting hurt people. So if most of their formative years, pre-3-year-old, and this is where the adverse childhood experience is a vital part of my work, because we are shaped by our environment. So if you had primary caregivers that were narcissistic or ambivalent or avoidant or used the silent treatment or withheld love from you, a lot of the times you learn that behavior from the people that did that to you. So the victim and the perpetrator cycle of abuse continues. So, you know, again, classic manipulation 101 is, if you've always been a positive, compassionate, independent type of person, just like I was, I had to relearn how to give to myself first and trust my intuition and stop looking outside of myself or blaming myself for what had happened. And it took me a long time. You know, this work is powerful, but it's not always easy. You know, but again, this is why support is so important. Just remember that you have nothing to hide, nothing to prove to anyone else. Agree to disagree. It's not your job to convince somebody about how you think and feel, which is a sign of codependency. So feel better by staying true to yourself and to get empowered from that place of trusting who you are rather than putting your trust in somebody outside of you. So I hope that this has been helpful. Just know that these people want you to doubt yourself in order to control and manipulate yourself. And this is where emotional abuse comes into being. And above all, get help. If you like this, if you'd like to know how to work with me, as your trust doctor, I deliver fierce, compassionate medicine so that you can get out of your own way and feel empowered in standing in your truth and putting those strong boundaries in place. And if you know somebody that you know might be looking for this, some words of assurance that none of this is your fault and that you will get out of it with the right support and the people that see you in the highest, greatest gift, please share it with them. Comment below if you have any questions. And follow me, subscribe to my channel. I will be going through various aspects of how to heal from trauma. Although you can't change what's happened to you, you can certainly transform that. And I'll be going over some of the different aspects of style attachments and various aspects of how to recognize the red flags before it's too late. So until then, trust that you're enough. Trust that you know, like you know who you are. Nobody knows you better than you and your body. And it's your right to live a fulfilled, happy life in the space of people that see you and love you just the way that you are.